It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration is focusing on job creation as a way to stimulate the economy. Speaking at the launch of the Jubilee Fellows Program, President Buhari says building the right skills and experiences across key sectors are important to sustain economic growth. Buhari advises Nigerian youth to apply for the Fellows Program has been designed to provide a pathway for young Nigerians to gain experience in top-tier organizations and gain relevant skills. The program is a federal government initiative in partnership with the United Nations Development Program aimed at employing annually 20,000 graduates who recently concluded the mandatory one-year National Youth Service Corps program.
When this government was elected in 2015, we committed to increasing job opportunities for Nigerians, and as part of our social investment program, we recruited 500,000 graduates into our N-Power program. We estimate that about 2 million people join our labor force annually. We continue to work with our partners to provide more opportunities to create jobs, and Nigeria Jubilee Fellows Program in partnership with the United Nations Development Program being one of such opportunities.
So, 20,000 jobs?
Yeah, when you put it that way, it seems like you're trying to staunch hemorrhaging with a plaster. It seems massively inadequate. But the program itself, I think, sounds great. And I think if you look at it from the perspective of it being a 5-year program, then it's 100,000 jobs. If that makes it any better for you, I'm not sure. Because we have the promise, contrasted with the promise to lift 100 million people out of poverty, it does seem to barely scratch the surface. But in terms of the program and the thought that's gone into it, it seems really good. I went and had a look at the website. So it's in partnership with the United Nations Development Program and the European Union, and they're going to get these graduates and all across Nigeria, all 36 states. Equal allocation, we hope. Or some kind of sensible allocation, because I see that presenting problems across the private and public sector to assist even SMEs who may not be able to afford the services of certain professionals. They can sign up and they'll be matched. You don't get to choose where you're placed. You're just matched, hopefully in accordance to your interests, to your qualifications. I think it could be great. And the idea is that some of those graduates will be retained by their host organizations, similar to NYC. Those who are not lucky enough to be retained, hopefully can leverage on the experience that they gained, the network. All very well and good. It cannot be said that the government is doing absolutely nothing to solve the problem of youth unemployment, but I just don't think it's enough. It needs to be scaled up drastically. It's complementing programs like, I don't know, the Youth Fund, N-Power scheme, but like I said earlier, 20,000, like a drop in the ocean.
Dr. Abati?
Okay, I mean, when you talk about this, my feeling is one of nostalgia. And I must have said it again and again on this program. Once upon a time in this country, the factories worked. As chairman editorial board of The Guardian, I could stand in front of the balcony just by the side of my office in the evening and see, vans, lorries, taking workers from Apapa across the road, going home, staff transportation and all that. Because at that time, the manufacturing sector in Nigeria was at the peak. Sadly, we got to a situation in this country where many of those manufacturing companies, either in Apapa or in the Ikeja Industrial Estate, they used to be in this Lagos, Ikeja Industrial Estate, and also in Anambra, in parts of the East, with the efforts of Michael Okpara and others, all of a sudden, many of those factories became churches, Pentecostal, points where people who had been out of job were now looking for the favor of God. Now, during NYSC in those days, if you went to a National Youth Service camp, before you left the camp, companies used to come. They would set up desks It happened in my time. I saw it. Okay? So many companies will come and recruit. And as you were leaving the NYSC camp, you were going into a company. You were going into government departments because there was a need for labor. Nigeria was thriving at the time. I know many of my colleagues who went in there and they ended up as managing directors of big corporations. Some of them have even retired now. Even as final year students, we had the Nigeria Intelligence Agency, ministries, departments, and agencies of government going from university to university, looking for the brightest and the best in departments, organizing interviews. Many of my colleagues at the time we graduated in those days, in the 80s, are today in the commanding heights in many government departments. Somehow, we lost it. Nigeria failed to sustain that program for keeping its best and brightest and making sure that they are employed. Today, Nigeria has, yes, nominally, they tell us, 33.3% unemployment rate. But it's higher than that. When you add the unemployed and the underemployed, you have something over 50%. The question to ask is, how did we get to that point? And how best to address it? And that's why I agree with Tundu that this is like a drop in the ocean. Yes, the present administration is making efforts to address these issues from every direction, but this is basically a UNDP program. So it will take 20,000 Nigerians out of the job market for a few years. There's no guarantee that the various sectors in which they will be engaged, that they will retain them, because businesses are facing very serious challenges. The only way to address this long term, beyond the ERGP, the Economic Recovery Growth Program, beyond the medium-term economic network plan, is to see how we can transform the Nigerian economy in such a way that even the system itself will be asking for workers. Once upon a time in this country, if you went to a school of nursing, you were assured of a car called a ladder. They will give you a car loan. Government will give you car loan to get a car. So a nurse in those days was a big citizen in this country. But that's no longer the case. Now graduates cannot survive in Nigeria. Even people with multiple degrees, are struggling to survive. So government must look beyond what looks like a temporary support from the UNDP. How do we make sure that this economy creates jobs and those jobs are available and Nigerians will not need to go abroad, to Canada, to UK. They are even going now to Belgium, to Estonia, to go and look for jobs. We need to rescue the country. And I think that anybody who becomes president in 2023 must already begin to study the template, what Nigeria needs to do to give the people hope. My former boss used to say, the best thing you can do as a Nigerian leader is to give the people hope. But that hope must be concrete. It's not by acronyms or occasional programs.
All right, it has to be said, government doesn't create jobs, businesses do. When you support businesses, job will come out in every economy. I think we should focus more on supporting businesses, then jobs will come. That's all the news headlines. We'll take a short break. When we return, Rhodes Sudiri, Michael Wilson, Aaron Akerjola give updates in Africa, global business, spotting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rhodes Sudiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rhodes.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Doctor, excellent points on job creation. Look at what former President Obasanjo did when he liberalized the telecom sector. And look at what happened with jobs between 2000 and 2020. But to our viewers, good morning to our viewers as well. We kick off with the Central Bank of Nigeria and a letter that was released to banks, commercial banks yesterday, to publish the names of FX defaulters with respect to its policy on FX sales that are being managed by commercial banks. In that letter, the central bank notes that it's getting reports that people are using fake visas, also using, well, this is for personal travel allowance and business travel allowance to procure FX from the banks now. Also using tickets. You have to present a ticket, show where you're going, your visa, and so on and so forth. Then, they're also canceling tickets after they've presented them to the commercial banks, collecting FX and then not returning them as is stipulated, which has been instructed through all the banks, which end users were notified about. So the central bank has said, hey, look, the banks should publish the names and even the BVNs of those particular defaulters, and it's basically a name and shame. Also, the central bank has said that your account will be blocked. You will not get further access to FX. You will be, prosecuted. These are a number of things that have been laid out there. So this was a notification I put out there. The central bank is, again, saying that they will bring down the hammer. On another note related to FX, the EFCC got this information, not long ago, that the EFCC is investigating school fees fraud with respect to foreign exchange. So apparently, fraudsters are setting up companies overseas and then sending fake letters of admission, fake admission letters to collaborators here in Nigeria, who then take those fake letters to the bank and say, hey, my kid's been admitted to this school in this country, and let me get some FX for education. So they're collaborating with the central bank on that measure, and they've said that, look, bank, because I know Dr. Rufai Otundo, all three of you, one of you mentioned the fact that we should look, I think it was Dr. mentioned the fact that we should look at bank staff that may be collaborating with these perpetrators. So, it's been understood that any bank staff found to be collaborating will not only be dismissed from the bank, they'll also be prosecuted as well. Look, a number of people say, in order to end all this, why not just move the FX rate from the 411 that is being sold for PTA, BTA on the INE window to where it is in the parallel market at 515 or 520? I used to be in that camp. If you do that, it's probably going to move again, right? Because of speculations in the market. So I think the ultimate thing here, Nigeria just has to export more quality items, right? Export chocolates instead of cocoa. Export, more finished goods, quality finished goods that are bringing more FX. Because there's only so much that the central bank can do with respect to trying to manage the currency. We move to bits, still on the central bank. I want to encourage everybody to read a really good article in the This Day newspaper on how the central bank acquired the service or partnered with Bit Incorporated to partner on the e-Naira, the techno partner. You're looking at an image of the staff and founders of Bit. I want to start in the middle. There's an African-American in a black polo shirt with glasses. He's from PwC. His name is Oliver Jordan, PwC advisory partner. Now, to his left, his immediate left, the shortest man in that picture is Oliver Gale. He's wearing some khaki trousers. Oliver Gale is the president and co-founder of BIT. He's wearing a white shirt with a BIT in blue. BIT, again, is the technical partner of the central bank on the e-Naira. They are involved. They are a fintech company, cross-border payments. They did assist the Eastern Central Bank of the Caribbean in their first retail digital currency. So they've got expertise there. And the This Day article talks about the rigorous process, according to the Procurement Act in Nigeria, that the central bank went through to get their services, how they emerged, as they picked, the number of metrics that they were guided on. Another gentleman to take note of in that picture to the right in a blue t-shirt is Gabriel Abed. He's the CEO and co-founder of BIT. So they are, that's the ownership. There's been some funny rumors about Nigerians owning the company or something. That's nonsense. I mean, you're looking at the ownership of the company. Even further, let's go to Medici. Medici is the parent company, or rather, this majority shareholder in BIT, and they are in Salt Lake City, Utah. In fact, they increased their majority shareholding in BIT in October of 2020 with a further $8 million that they put in the company. Now, what you're seeing on your screen is a snapshot of the portfolio companies that Medici is invested in. And as you can see, the second company at the top row is BIT. I mean, the first company there is T0. T0 is involved in token transfers in blockchain and cryptocurrencies. BIT, of course, is involved in fintech, cross-border payments, digital currencies. Medici Land Governance, that's block blockchain land ownership, Grand Chain, that's supply chain agriculture tech, Votes. I like that. You should check out that company. They're involved in e-voting. And so look, the whole portfolio there, every name is identity management, settlement is blockchain, Ripio digital wallet. Medici basically invests in tech. So this is just to give a background on the majority ownership in Bits and what they're involved in. And also do read this day article on what the company is involved in. So again, the central bank did go through a rigorous process to partner with them, and they've got the expertise with respect to where we're going with the October 1st pilot launch of the e-Naira. Finally, to NNPC, Mele Kyari has said that free services to the federal government will end in about 6 months or so once the NNPC becomes a for-profit corporatized entity. He's been saying that, look, the Petroleum Industry Act calls for them to be a for-profit company. They can't depend on, government or any support like that. So that means that any, services that they render to the federal government will come, and anyone else will come with a fee. And that's our African Business Update for today.
The NNPC story makes sense to me. We don't expect that any arm of government should be offering free service to government. It's a government whose MDAs do not pay electricity bills and who expect to be on a rent at the expense of the Nigerian people. So the statement made by Mele Kyari makes sense. But about Bits and your attempt to say there was a rigorous screening process and all that, well, you know how these things work in Nigeria. So I don't see this point about trying to justify how a particular company has been chosen and how other companies do not measure up. Look, the primary interest of the CBN as it moves into this digital or e-Naira zone will be, in my view, to encourage Nigerian companies. That will be in the national interest. But to go and bring a company from somewhere and then try to do media, packaging to say, oh, we have taken the best decision. We are not privy to those details, and we are not in a position to say the right choice has been made. We have no, information which we can evaluate. But I think that in all cases, whether it is, e-Naira or whatever other initiative, the national interest should be paramount. And I had made a point on this program previously that, look, we need more information with regard to e-Naira. And I hope that, the central bank will focus on that, particularly with the identified 5 categories and also the tiers of engagement for retail customers who may be more majorly affected. Now, you made a point about the sale of PTA, BTA, and all of that. And I've always said that, look, the CBN should focus more on integrity within the banks themselves that have taken over this particular function. It's not enough to just say we will prosecute persons who provide false information, persons who do not return what they have received. No customer can do that without the collusion of the bankers themselves. And I think that that's where the focus of the EFCC should be, because the narrative has always been about protecting the integrity and stability of the forex market. I don't think that an ordinary consumer of PTA or BTA can compromise the system if they are not helped from within. Yes, banks have been asked to publish on their websites the details of the transactions. Would they obey it? What is the mechanism in place to monitor how the banks themselves transact? And final question, I hope that this is not a case of the BDCs trying to game the system, raising questions and trying to find ways in which they can compromise the CBN new initiative. Because clearly, the BDCs are not happy with the resolve of the central bank to take Forex away from them and put it back in the banks. The Bankers Committee has a responsibility beyond press statements to ensure that, look, all those boastful statements that they have made, that they are capable, that they achieve it.
I mean, so for me, concerning the CBN, I'll have wanted the CBN to work on a viable architecture for this e-Naira, probably NIBS sits down in the room, interbank settlement, and they work with a couple of fintech companies in Nigeria. I think we have more than enough. At the top of my head, I can mention 5. Flutterwave, Patricia. The list.
Sorry to interrupt. Not in the expertise of handling a digital currency.
Rotus.
Bits is involved. Has already done this in another country. So that's the issue here. It's the capability of doing this.
Expertise can be acquired, Rotus. Let's not deceive ourselves. Expertise can be acquired. Bit acquired this same expertise. Is it not coders and programmers that will go in there and crunch the numbers and write the algorithms? What are we saying? And you are benchmarking it against what they did in Barbados. What they did in Barbados. I mean, are you going to compare an economy like Barbados to Nigeria with the humongous size we have? Why can't we develop this expertise within?
It's not about size, Rufai. It's about transparency. Let's not get into this.
Rotus, are you telling me that Nigerian fintech companies can't develop this expertise? Is that what you're telling me? You are in tech, Rotus, too now. Don't say this on TV.
High security standards for a digital currency.
Which can be developed. Very high.
This is not an e-wallet for just transferring money. There's a whole lot that goes into this. So you have to go with a company that has the technical capabilities and has demonstrated it elsewhere. Again, that image is a PwC. I didn't even complete my point. The man in the black t-shirt with the glasses. PwC signed a 2017 Memorandum of Understanding with BIT. This is 2017 to scale blockchain across the Caribbean. PwC has work with these folks. This isn't just any other company from out of nowhere. You have to demonstrate the capability to do this.
You can get NIBS with the guys with good investment. You can still build that architecture. All of this thing is algorithmically architectured. That's just it, really. So it's not rocket science. It's just tech.
Well, knowledge transfer. You can transfer the knowledge and then see how it works for going down the line.
Well, on that note, Rotus, thank you for your time. Moving on to more business updates. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, very good morning to you. Headlines really, stocks are seesawing back from record highs. US consumer confidence taking a bit of a knock. ECB, bit of taper talk there. And crude softer, gold steady. Bitcoin consolidates. Those are the headlines, really. As far as Asia stocks are concerned, private survey, once again, the Clarkson survey, which we see every month, shows that factory orders are actually shrinking in August in China. Mainland China stocks, though, relatively unchanged. Hong Kong edging slightly higher. PMI we saw yesterday sort of underlying this. So basically a bit of weakness happening in China. I don't think there's anything to get particularly for them to get alarmed about, but the cultural change there is massive. They've identified in a quite a well-read blog podcast that I've seen the twin tumors, as they put it, of capitalism and celebrity. And it appears as though the general move is back to socialism. Good luck with that. South Korea. Now, I know this is sort of yesterday's story, and Rotus and I discussed this yesterday, but it's very important indeed. It's about South Korea passing a bill which limits Apple and Google to the amount of revenue they can get from their app store payments. In other words, they're going to take over those payments. It means that both those companies lose about 3% of their revenue. I think it adds to this general theory about big tech being attacked throughout the world. It means that developers will be able to avoid paying commission to Google and Apple if they actually are in their app store, and people who want to buy from it can be directed to pay via alternative platforms. That's very important. The EU and the UK are looking very closely at that. I'm sure that large central banks in Africa are doing exactly the same kind of thing. Let me recap the United States for you. Stock markets opened, futures rather, opening slightly higher this morning. A bit of record territory there, but let's draw your attention, if I may, to the autumn now. It is the 1st of September. We approach the autumn, or the fall, as they call it in the United States, and people are getting slightly worried. There's a bit of worried about taper. Why not? Also about COVID and so on. And all those things are maybe leading to a bit of a correction or a pullback. Not a sell-off, but just a correction. So it's very basically a hazardous time for stocks. All the more reason then for the chairman of the Fed to maintain a straight course. Left-wing Democrats, though, want him replaced. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has called for Jerome Powell not to be appointed as Fed chair from 2022. We do know that the President of the United States is actually wondering about, or at least there's speculation that Joe Biden is planning to reappoint him. Who knows? U.S. confidence, as I said, mentioned falling faster than people are actually worried about interest rates going up. That's what's happened there. Quite big in the United States, and that certainly affected the markets this morning. The SEC boss, Security and Exchange Commission in the United States, Gary Gensler, has said that cryptos need some sort of regulation when it comes to what he describes as public policy prerogatives like investor protection, imperatives like investor protection, guarding against illicit activity, and maintaining financial stability. Speaking of financial stability, we saw, once again, discussed this with Reuters yesterday, but it's worth looking because we've had comments since then from the European Central Bank. Inflation ticking up in the EU. Two governing council members, Holzmann und Knott, have both said, K-N-O-T that is, have both said that it's likely that there could be some tapering as far as the ECB's debt buying program, probably early next year, though, rather than later this year. To the UK, Shell, the fossil fuel company, of course, is actually pushing to install 50,000 charging points for electric vehicles by 2025. That'll give them a third of the market. 75% of the costs will be covered by local authorities. That's interesting. Doesn't actually solve the problem, though, if you don't live at ground level. No doubt they'll come to that. The UK North Sea oil producers are testing the green resolve of the UK government by asking them to back 18 new projects. They may not. It's clearly a major test of the commitment of the UK towards this carbon-free or carbon-neutral stance by 2030. And today you can buy. It's called E10. It has 10% bioethanol in it. Motorists are naturally a bit confused, not quite sure whether one drives up one's car. You can actually fill it, but no doubt it will all be explained later on. Oil crude prices, I know that OPEC Plus are meeting today, softened as we expect more output from Mexico, quite honestly, and no big worries from OPEC about oversupply on the V-shaped recovery and the oil price last week, so I assume that not a great deal amount of change there. And gold prices finally really grappling with something to get hold of. Is it up? Is it down? Who knows? A quicker exit from crisis mode, etc. All these things kind of flowing around the gold market, being run by technicals as we speak. That's the global view.
All right. Michael, thank you so much. Good morning. Real quickly, is it the end of oil? I keep asking this question. I know what your response might be, but Shell building EV stations, also the last leaded fuel being sold in Algeria, and the oil market in general. Is this the beginning of the end? Probably should be the question I should ask. And inflation, things are steaming up in the Eurozone, 3% inflation. That's where it's capped. So this is the time for stimulus to drop, and probably, maybe we might look at that conversation again about interest rate, long term or short term.
Okay. No, it's not the end of fossil fuels. A long way to go. There isn't the infrastructure in place to replace them. Many developing countries will still be using fossil fuels for a long time. OPEC will remain a cartel, as I understand it. I don't really see the use of it myself, but it will remain a cartel for a long time because we'll still be dependent on fossil fuels for a long time. And what we're seeing right now is completely, we keep saying this on this program, this price of around $70 a barrel keeps most people happy, in as much as it's not free, but it's $70 a barrel. It keeps the producers happy, and it also keeps the consumers relatively happy. Although we're seeing quite alarming prices rising at the pumps. They've seen that in the United States. We're seeing it here. No doubt you're seeing it too. But that's a matter for governments rather than the oil companies themselves. As far as interest rates are concerned, yes, inflation ticking up as you would expect. Supply chain shortages and all the rest of it. As I keep saying, the idea of a central bank is to, and the ECB should be doing this, is as should the Fed, as should your central bank, as should the Bank of England, be looking through these figures and actually getting a proper take on them before they take any action. I think we will see quantitative easing being eased out towards the end of this year, the beginning of next. But as I take it from indications from central banks at the moment, no raise in interest rates yet. Okay,
Mr. Wilson, I would like to ask you a cocktail of questions. I will be very quick about it. The first is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka now, the authorities have taken over the distribution of what they call essential commodities. The economy, the GDP having dropped by almost 7.5%. By 3.6%. Inflation rate at 7.5%. And the cost of food, sugar, staple foods, having gone up. So they've set up a ministry now. They've appointed a minister of essential services who will now be in charge of distributing food and fixing prices. Is that the way forward? Sri Lanka is facing a surge in COVID, and as a result of that, there's been a shutdown for 2 weeks. I asked that question because once upon a time in Nigeria, we had something they call government taking charge of essential services, essential food commodities. In Nigeria, it was called Esenko. Is it likely to work in Sri Lanka? Should government get into the business of distributing food and managing food supply? That's one. The second one is the issue about Shell that you referred to. Shell wants to install 50,000 electric charging points in the UK. The UK says by 2030, it will ban gasoline, diesel-powered vehicles. Is the problem really about charging points or the fact that electric vehicles are in themselves so priced, so expensive, beyond the reach of the ordinary man? And finally, India. India has reported 20.1% growth in the face of COVID, and India is celebrating. How sustainable is that? Because there are analysts who have said, look, this is just about base effect. The Minister of Finance of India himself saying this is due to increase in consumer spending. But can India sustain it? The optimism that we have seen expressed around the Indian economy in the last 48 hours, is it sustainable? And I ask that question again because here in Nigeria, we have a similar situation. We've been celebrating 5.01 GDP growth. India is in the same situation. Here in Nigeria, some economists have said it's due to base effect. In India, they are also saying it's due to base effect, but some people are saying it's due to good management of the economy. What really is the issue?
Okay, let me ask you a question then, Doctor.
Yes.
So what was the result of the government intervention in Nigeria's economy?
No, the Nigerian government says, look, government has been very creative and government has taken good policy measures, and hence we have experienced that GDP growth compared to the second quarter in 2020. And that's exactly the same thing that the Indian minister is saying, that they have experienced, growth due to consumer spending and activities, increased activities in manufacturing. The narrative is more or less the same. But is it good management or base effect? Deep dive base effect.
So Sri Lanka then, I don't think government intervention works. That's why I asked you the question. I don't think government intervention works in anything, quite honestly. The only thing that countries like Sri Lanka and India should be doing right now is not rejoicing or not in either controls or growth. As it comes to India, they should be concentrating on vaccination. That's where we are at the moment, as far as the developing and the developed world is concerned. And those countries actually really need to do that. That's what they should be concentrating on. These figures are estimates. They're probably not particularly accurate. I have no idea how they're gathered. I don't know what India does. I know that there is a massive disparity between the rich and the poor in a place like India. And I know that Modi was came in as supposedly an experienced businessman from Punjab to try to sort things out, and he clearly hasn't. So, I mean, it's a massive, huge manufacturing nation which needs to up its game and get vaccinations going out to lots of other people. I would say the same for Sri Lanka. I don't know the detail of Sri Lanka. I've read the stories, but again, I'm very suspicious of the kind of figures that come out of it. As far as Shell's concerned, this is the changing face of fossil fuel companies. I mean, you know, you have to get down to the nitty-gritty of this. If you live in an apartment, 9 floors up in a city centre, how will you get power to your electric car? Will it be down in the garage? Will it be on the roadside? It's going. What Shell are doing is they're going to use lampposts and bollards. They're going to use street furniture apparently to develop electrical power. Will it get stolen? Yes, of course it will. I think there's a long way to go. And you put your finger on it. The other thing, of course, is the expense of electric vehicles. I'd add into that range, but we'll come on to that. Maybe another time, but the expense of them still too much. China is starting a people affordable kind of car, but I have seen no sign of that in developed economies apart from China yet.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Thank you.